SLT Mobitel Fiber, the fiber of the nation. SLT Mobitel Fiber, the fiber of the nation.
Comfort Moodiයෙන් භාගයයි කලක් පවතින අලුත් පෙනුමයි.
Tonight, pandemic consequences. Sri Lanka's economy records a 1.5% contraction in the third quarter of the year. Read the fine print. IMF Executive Director for Sri Lanka avoids Sri Lanka's currency crisis.
It is a matter of some interest, but that also a separate talk and a separate discussion.
What's the buzz? Sri Lanka detects 3 more Omicron patients as new study reveals 10 times lower lung infection rate than Delta. A test of legitimacy. The Supreme Court begins hearing petitions against the YUGADANAVI power plant deal. All that and much more coming up on First at 9. This Thursday, the 16th of December, 2021.
Introducing New Hellmann's, the world's #1 mayonnaise brand now in Sri Lanka.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening, welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammi Kekanai. Now then, IMF Executive Director for India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh and Bhutan, Dr. Surjit Bhalla, who is currently in the island, avoided broaching the subject of Sri Lanka's currency crisis and instead hinted that his policy on the devaluation has been clearly indicated in his book titled Devaluing to Prosperity. His comments came during a question and answer session after he delivered a lecture at the Central Bank on the subject of understanding women's work today, definition methods and policies.
Dr. Surjit Bhalla, Executive Director of the International Monetary Fund, overseeing India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh and Bhutan, delivered a lecture this afternoon focusing on the subject of further understanding methods and policies relating to women's work. However, the burning question of Sri Lanka's currency issues seemed to be a subject that he wasn't prepared to take up.
I don't know, I haven't yet related currency crisis to female labor force participation rate, but indeed I've written a book called Devaluing to Prosperity, and it is a matter of some interest, but that's also a separate talk and a separate discussion.
Meanwhile, Dr. Bhalla was also quizzed on a recent article authored by him that advises the Indian government to head to the IMF for borrowings, which he explained was because it wasn't fair for the subcontinent powerhouse to pay higher borrowing rates than others on the international market.
It turns out the article, and this is something that I proposed at the fund and etc., and was preceded by an earlier article in which I observed that the premium that many countries, 90% of the developing countries, they pay for market borrowing, commercial borrowings, international borrowing, is about 3 to 4 percentage points higher than other countries. So for example, the 10-year bond yield right now in the US is 1.5%. And if India was to go and borrow, it'll have to pay more than 4.5 to 5%. And then obviously that's graded by different countries' ability to pay. But India has $670 or something billion of reserves. We are not in an unstable situation. So why should we have to pay? And my conclusion is that, and historically, that premium is too high. And it is in that context that I argue. But it's very much dependent on what the nature of the economy is, the nature of reserves is, etc.
Sri Lanka's economy has contracted by 1.5% in the third quarter of this year, as per the latest data from the Department of Census and Statistics. The report also highlighted another contraction, that is in gross domestic product at constant prices to just under 2.5 million rupees. However, GDP at current prices showed an increase in the third quarter, indicating a rise in prices, but with domestic output lagging behind.
Due to the impact of COVID-19 related restrictions, Sri Lanka's economy recorded a 1.5% contraction in the third quarter of the year, according to data from the Department of Census and Statistics. The report explains that with the pandemic situation having intensified in the month of August, the resultant high daily cases had placed extra pressure on the economy. During this period, a clear decline was experienced in economic activities, especially in wholesale and retail trade, manufacturing, construction, transportation, accommodation and F&B, and private services, it added. The department also reported a decrease in GDP according to constant prices to 2,497,489 rupees by the third quarter from 2,536,490 rupees last year. GDP at constant prices is the rate adjusted for inflation. With that, GDP at current prices or actual market prices reported an increase of 1.1% to 4,132,955 rupees in the third quarter of this year, from 4,087,148 rupees last year. This indicates that price levels remained higher than output throughout the quarter. Among the major sectors, it was only agriculture that recorded growth, that is of 1.7%, which is down from 3.1% in 2020. Overall industrial activities, on the other hand, dipped by 2.1% due to slow momentum in some manufacturing activities, construction and mining, and quarrying industries. The services sector also recorded a bit of a slump of 1.6% in the third quarter due to contraction in goods and passenger transportation service activities and other personal services activities. The industrial and services industries recorded negative growth rates of 14.9% and 5.7% respectively, both hit by restrictions on public gatherings during the lockdown. And with Sri Lanka currently more or less fully open with more people out and about, the situation, we hope, can only get better from here on.
Sri Lanka's leading immunologist, Dr. Chandima Jivandar, announced today that 3 more Omicron-infected patients have been detected through gene sequencing tests conducted on samples obtained from inbound tourists and Sri Lankans. Meanwhile, a study conducted in Hong Kong has revealed that the Omicron variant spreads 70 times faster in the human bronchus compared to the Delta variant, but displays a lower lung infection rate, 10 times than the Delta variant. Although this may lend further credence to claims of low risk from the variant, experts warn that Omicron's ability to partially evade vaccines could make up that difference.
The Omicron variant has so far been detected across 77 countries according to the World Health Organization, with Sri Lanka too in the list. Until today, the island nation had confirmed just 1 case of the variant on the 3rd of December. The patient was identified as a woman who had travelled to Nigeria and recently returned to Sri Lanka. However, with that, 3 more new cases were confirmed today by Director of the Allergy Immunology and Cell Biology Unit of the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura, Dr. Chandima Jivandar. This sudden detection of new cases, Dr. Jivandar says, is all the more reason for people to hurry up and get their booster doses. In the past 3 days, it looks like the calls made by authorities urging public to get their 3rd shots are being heeded. And now, every day sees a new daily booster shot record broken, as thousands more turn up at vaccine centres. Yesterday's daily booster dose rollout broke the record set the day before, as 212,733 people were administered with the jab. On Tuesday, 208,003 people had received the booster dose. In the meantime, a study conducted by a team of researchers from the University of Hong Kong found that the Omicron variant multiplies 70 times faster in the human bronchus compared to the Delta variant. The researchers believe that this might be the reason for the Omicron variant's rapid spread in communities. However, the study also shows that the Omicron infection in the lung is 10 times lower than the original SARS-CoV-2, which may be an indicator of lower disease severity. One of the researchers said that the result needs to be interpreted with caution because severe disease is determined not only by how quickly the virus replicates, but also by a person's immune response, and in particular, whether the immune system goes into overdrive, causing what's known as a cytokine storm. A cytokine storm is when the immune system releases an uncontrolled and excessive amount of pro-inflammatory signaling molecules called cytokines, which could in large quantities cause multi-system organ failure and lead to death. After considering the recent studies, the researchers said that due to Omicron's ability to partially evade vaccines and past infection-induced immunity, the threat of the variant is likely to be very significant. Further, with more preliminary studies concluding that the threat of the Omicron variant is growing, health authorities continue to urge people to get vaccinated and follow health guidelines. However, with various seasonal festivities expected, the Ministry of Health say that adherence to the health guidelines are currently below expectations.
Complaints are coming from various quarters about non-adherence of health guidelines, especially in events organized in relation to the festive season in various parts of the island, where several events to commemorate or going in parallel to the festive season has been organized disregarding the health guidelines, which is totally unacceptable. We know that most of the clusters created in the past have been associated with certain type of gatherings related to weddings, funeral houses and other gathering of people in relation to several kind of entertainment events and also the parties and related social gatherings. So therefore, it is virtually impossible to control these activities or to ensure that these activities are carried out according to the health guidelines by having policing system by the health workers at all these events. It is virtually impossible. That is why we emphasize that it is the responsibility of the owners of the venues of these parties, events, that it should be carried out according to the stipulated health guidelines.
Petitions filed against the YUGADANAVI power plant share transfer deal were taken up before a 5-member bench of the Supreme Court today, headed by Chief Justice Jayanta Jayasuriya. Making submissions, the petitioners argued that by going ahead with the agreement, the Sri Lankan government would be surrendering its sovereignty to the United States and also compromised on the national security. However, appearing on behalf of the respondents, Attorney General Sanjay Rajaratnam told the Supreme Court that the petitions should be disregarded wholly, as the share transfer was part of a business deal and not a tender process, thereby nullifying the basis of the petitions.
5 fundamental rights petitions were filed in the Supreme Court seeking to revoke the Cabinet's decision to transfer shares of the YUGADANAVI LNG power plant to US-based company New Fortress Energy. The petitioners include Venerable Adelaide Gunawansathera, the Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit, the General Secretary of the Samagi Janabalawegaya, Ranjit Madhuma Bandara, and former JVP MPs Sunil Handunetti and Vasantha Samarasinghe. Among the list of 54 respondents named in the petition are the Cabinet including Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, the Secretary to the Ministry of Energy, the Ceylon Electricity Board, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, and the owner of the 310-megawatt YUGADANAVI power plant, West Coast Power Limited. Ministers Vimal Veeravansa, Udaya Gammanpilla and Vasudeva Nanayakara have also filed objections before the Supreme Court in support of these fundamental rights petitions. The petitions are being heard before a 5-member Supreme Court bench headed by Chief Justice Jayanta Jayasuriya, along with Justices Bhuvanika Aluvihare, Priyantha Jayawardena, Vijit Malalgoda and LTB Dehideniya. Attorney General Sanjay Rajaratnam, representing Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and the Cabinet, presented his argument detailing the facts that he says should be sufficient to reject the hearings of petitions. He explained that the petitions were filed exceeding the time limit stipulated by the Constitution for petitions to be filed. Another flaw, he added, was that according to the Attorney General, even though New Fortress Energy has been named as a respondent, none of its board members have been personally named as respondents as well. He pointed out that the decision to transfer the shares of YUGADANAVI LNG power plant was a business transaction and as such, it cannot be challenged. As such, he told the court that there was no legal basis for the petitions, as there is no procurement process that needs to be followed in the case of a business transaction. He also submitted several cabinet decisions on the matter and drafts of the share transfer agreement to the court. Meanwhile, President's counsel Manohara de Silva, appearing on behalf of Ceylon Electricity Board trade unions, accused the US ambassador of Sri Lanka of having unethically interfered in the transaction. He explained that after the first cabinet decision on the matter was presented on the 14th of July in 2020, the US ambassador to Sri Lanka had written to the president's secretary on the matter on the 22nd of July. He said that this was an unethical diplomatic intervention in the internal affairs of the country, and this shows that the US ambassador was trying to achieve her goals through corrupt government officials. President's counsel De Silva then went on to say that the government's decision to transfer the country's gas supply monopoly to the New Fortress Energy through the agreement was hence against the law. He also told the court that by transferring such a monopoly, Sri Lanka's sovereignty was being sold to the United States. He added that this poses a threat to the country's national security as well, as it enables the company to build a large gas terminal in the vicinity of Colombo and the president's residence. This would in turn, he said, enable the company to dock warships at the terminal. President's counsel Manohara de Silva then added that the New Fortress Energy doesn't however have the expertise to handle gas-related matters. The President's Council also said it would become for a criminal offence if an American company misled the cabinet as well as the Supreme Court by falsely claiming that it had experience and expertise in the gas business. However, in response, President's Counsel Ramesh De Silva, also appearing on behalf of the respondents, rejected the allegations and revealed that a formal assessment had been carried out prior to the transfer of the shares. Following this, the Supreme Court postponed the hearing of fundamental rights petitions challenging the YUGADANAVI power plant agreement until 10 a.m. tomorrow.
Join us again on the other side of this short break.
Big 3.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now then, Litrogas Lanka submitted an affidavit to the court this morning stating that only gas cylinders approved by the Consumer Affairs Authority and the Sri Lanka Standards Institute will be released to the market, along with a sticker mentioning the LPG composition of the cylinder. This was made following the court directive issued yesterday.
Yesterday, the Court of Appeal ordered Litrogas Lanka to appear before it today, when a petition filed by civil society activist Nagananda Kodituaku on the island-wide LP gas explosions was taken into consideration. Litrogas Lanka was also ordered by the court to submit an affidavit with regards to the submissions made yesterday. When the petition was taken up this morning, attorney for Litrogas Lanka Limited, President's Counsel Harsha Amarasekara, gave an understanding on behalf of his client that it will ensure that only gas cylinders approved by the Consumer Affairs Authority and the Sri Lanka Standards Institute will be distributed by the company. In addition, another undertaking was provided, which will see a special sticker indicating the LPG composition of the gas cylinders being added to the new batch of cylinders to be released into the market. Meanwhile, President's Counsel MANOHARA Jayasinghe, who appeared on behalf of the Consumer Affairs Authority and the Sri Lanka Standards Institute, informed court that a decision on the standard LP gas composition for domestic use will be taken at a meeting chaired by the SLSI on the 20th of December. After considering the facts presented today, the bench announced that its orders will be delivered tomorrow. In the meantime, the two LP gas carriers that were just yesterday refused permission to unload their cargoes after failing the ethyl mercaptan tests still remain anchored off the coast of Taldiyavatta. However, the State Ministry of Consumer Protection, the Consumer Affairs Authority and the Sri Lanka Standards Institute seem to have backtracked on that announcement, stating that a final decision on the offloading issue remains to be taken. Meanwhile, Director of the Department of Measurement Units, Standards and Services, S.N. Akuran Tilaka, has informed Minister of Trade, Dr. Bandula Gunawardana, of an issue with pressure levels of gas cylinders currently in the market. He revealed that the maximum pressure of a gas cylinder amounting to 6 bars, current cylinders are on sale, have shown 5.2 bars. However, he suggested that this pressure level should be reduced to 4.2 bars for safety purposes.
The Sri Lanka Tea Board has reduced the tea promotion and marketing strategy levy charged from each kilogram of tea exported from Sri Lanka by 50 cents to 3 rupees. According to the Sri Lanka Tea Board, the funds collected will be spent on global marketing activities of Ceylon tea and also supply chain improvements.
On the 27th of November 2010, Extraordinary Gazette number 1677/14 was issued by Sri Lanka Tea Board, slapping a 3 rupee and 50 cent export tax on a kilogram of tea from Sri Lanka as a tea promotion and marketing strategy levy. However, the 2010 Gazette, which remained in place for over 11 years, was rescinded last Tuesday by the current chairman of the Tea Board, Jayampati Molligoda. Accordingly, the new levy will be 3 rupees, which will be used for global marketing of Ceylon tea as well as supply chain development activities of the tea industry, such as establishing quality tea nurseries. The levy from each kilogram will be deposited into the main account of the Sri Lanka Tea Board.
Meanwhile, in other local news, a circular has been issued extending the retirement age of public sector employees to 62 years. The communique published by the Secretary to the Ministry of Finance, S.R. Artigala, will accordingly come into effect from the 1st of January next year. Following the issuance of the circular, any public sector employee who wishes to serve beyond the current retirement age of 57 will be allowed to serve until the age of 62 without requesting an extension of service. As per the circular, any public officer can retire between the ages of 57 and 62 at their discretion by providing 3 months' notice to the appointing officer. The circular states that if the appointing officer decides not to grant an extension of service to any officer guilty of unsatisfactory performance or efficiency, the appointing officer is then authorised to retire the employee with 6 months' notice provided. A mega haul of ammunition consisting of 84 boxes, each with 750 rounds of T-56 ammunition, were recovered by the police special task force in Kilinochchi today. The ammunition haul, that is also consisted of ammunition for multi-purpose machine guns, was believed to have been buried during the country's conflict with the terror outfit LTTE.
On Monday, the 13th of December, the Special Task Force uncovered 2 boxes containing T-56 ammunition at a site in Ramya Road located in the area of Kilinochchi. After presenting submissions regarding the recovery to the Kilinochchi magistrate, further excavations were conducted by STF personnel at the site. The excavations, however, led to the discovery of a massive haul of ammunition. According to police, 84 boxes, each containing 750 rounds of ammunition, were unearthed at the site. In addition, 46,000 T-56 rounds removed from their cartridges, 800 M6 machine gun rounds, and 400 multi-purpose machine gun rounds were also found by the STF. It is believed that this ammunition haul had been buried during the terrorist conflict. Further investigations into the incident are currently underway by the Kilinochchi police.
We will see you shortly on the other side of this break. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is First at 9. Now, purchasing managers' indices for both manufacturing and services activities expanded further in November this year, continuing the past month's steady growth. The normalising of economic activities in the country and across the world and high optimism led to the index recording a value of 61.9 for the month. This increase has been attributed to a spike in new orders in the run-up to the festive season.
Benefiting from the normalising of economic activities in the country, the manufacturing PMI continued to expand in the month of November, recording an index value of 61.9. This has been attributed to a significant increase in production, new orders and stock of purchases sub-indices. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka's Purchasing Managers Report for the month of November says that respondents had revealed a higher number of orders were received in the month ahead of the upcoming festive season. Further production, especially in the manufacture of textile and wearing apparel sectors, increased during the month as well. Meanwhile, employment expanded at a slower rate compared to the month of October. Further, it also reported high expectations for manufacturing activities to improve due to a possible improvement in economic conditions locally and globally. Nevertheless, some respondents were concerned of the possible negative impact of the Omicron variant on their business operations. New businesses, meanwhile, rose in November compared to the previous month, mainly with improvements observed in the financial services and transportation sub-sectors.
Now, taking a look at the activities of the Colombo Bourse, despite recording an 8.3 billion rupee turnover, the all-share price index lost 75.81 points to end at 11,678.65 today. The S&P SL20 index of more liquid stocks also lost 20.73 points to end at 4,212.29. Now, with that, here's Dimantha Matthew with a brief report on today's market performance.
Yesterday also the market was in negative territory, and today we are seeing a 76-point decline in the market, so sizably large decline, and the index closed at 11,678 points. Retail activity, which was slightly in a lower scale compared to the past few days, and so the number of transactions with it has dipped to around 40,000 from the mid 50,000 range. That is primarily because of the negative sentiment in the market at the moment, where we are seeing a sort of a declining trend, and the turnover level in the market was around 8.3 billion rupees. We saw the transportation sector and the diversified financials sector recording a decline in value. Then that is the primary reason for the overall market to decline. And in addition to that, we saw some activity in the construction and building material segment as well.
And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.